Catania looks easy. Piazza Duomo, Via Etnea, Mount Etna. But if you visit it as 3 separate boxes to tick, you may miss the most interesting part of the city. Because Catania is not just a convenient base for Mount Etna or eastern Sicily. It is dark, warm, Baroque, noisy, and built with lava in its bones. In this guide, I'll take you through a simple route, from Piazza Duomo to the fish market, from Via Etnea to Via Crociferi, and then to the Benedictine Monastery, Castello Ursino, and the choices beyond the center, Mount Etna, the Cyclops Riviera, and the sea. If you have 1 day in Catania, you'll know what to keep. If you have 2 or 3 days, you'll know what to add. And most importantly, you'll know what not to force into the same itinerary. I would start where all of this is immediately visible, Piazza Duomo.
Piazza Duomo is the best place to begin because it immediately gives you Catania's visual language. You have the Cathedral of St. Agatha, Palazzo degli Elefanti, the pale Baroque stone, the black lava details, and in the center, the Liotru, the lava stone elephant that is not just a famous statue, it feels like a statement of character. Here, Catania tells you something right away. The volcano is not far away. It is not only an excursion to plan later. It is already inside the material of the city. It is in the dark color, in the details of the facades, in the way the Baroque feels heavier, more physical, more connected to the ground. The mistake in Piazza Duomo is to take 2 photos and leave. I would use it as your orientation point. Look at the square first, then the details. The contrast between white and black, the lines of the facades, the fountain, the open space, the direction toward Via Etnea. If you have limited time, see this area at the beginning, not at the end of the day, because it helps you understand everything that comes next. And already from here, I'll tell you something. In just a few steps, Catania loses this ordered pose and becomes much more alive. You only need to move toward the Amenano fountain.
From the Amenano fountain, the shift is immediate. Above, you still have Piazza Duomo, stone, facades, and order. Below, the fish market begins. And this is where Catania changes voice. It is not an elegant transition, and it is not staged for visitors. It is water on the ground, fish stalls, voices, crates, knives, people moving through narrow spaces, the smell of the sea, shadow between the alleys, and sudden cuts of light. The fish market is not just a market. It is where Catania stops being a facade and becomes a voice. It's best to come here in the morning, when the market is more alive. Before going, always check updated days and opening times, because market routines can change. And above all, don't come here looking for a perfect scene. The fish market works because it is physical, messy, real, and sometimes a little uncomfortable. If you don't like crowded markets or strong smells, you can pass along the edges without forcing it. But if you want to understand Catania, I would not skip it completely. Because after the fish market, Via Etnea will feel different. More orderly, yes, but still carrying the sound of the market behind it.
Via Etnea should not be treated as just a shopping street. It is the street that helps you understand how Catania is oriented. It begins in the historic center and runs, at least in your mind, toward Mount Etna, even when the volcano is hidden by light, clouds, or buildings. When the sky is clear, its presence changes everything. You don't even need to look at it all the time. Just knowing it is there, at the end of the street's axis, gives the city direction. If you are planning a walking itinerary in Catania, Via Etnea helps you stay oriented. You can use it as the backbone of your route, moving in and out of side streets without feeling lost. The practical advice here is simple. Don't walk the whole street with the same level of attention. Some sections are more commercial, others more scenic. Stop when the perspective opens, when Etna appears, when the light hits the lava stone, or when a side street leads you into a quieter Catania. One of those side streets is essential, Via Crociferi, and that is where the route stops being wide and linear and becomes more silent.
Via Crociferi is one of the moments when Catania becomes denser. You no longer have the open square, the market, or the long line of Via Etnea. Here, the street narrows, the facades move closer, and the Baroque becomes more concentrated. The mistake is to cross it too quickly, as if it were just a beautiful street to photograph. I would treat it as a slower passage. Notice how the light slides across the facades, how the stone changes tone, how the noise of the city stays just behind you without fully entering. From here, if you have time, the Benedictine Monastery adds the deepest layer. Before visiting, always check updated opening times, access, and booking options, because this is a stop that deserves to be planned properly. Inside the monastery, the sounds drop. The spaces widen. Your steps become slower. And after Piazza Duomo, the fish market, and Via Etnea, Catania stops pushing outward for a moment. Here, it goes underneath, into memory, into layers, into reconstruction, into the feeling that this city has never truly stood still. In Catania, lava is not only a landscape, it is a memory beneath your feet. After the monastery, you can add 2 stops that are not equally important for everyone, but help you understand another side of Catania: Castello Ursino and the Roman Theatre. Castello Ursino is interesting because it shows a different city from the one you see in the Baroque facades. It feels more compact, more defensive, more severe. And above all, it reminds you that Catania has changed shape many times. I would include this stop if you have at least 2 days, or if you want to see a less scenic and more historical side of the city. If you only have half a day, it may take too much space away from the central route. The Roman Theatre is different. Many people do not include it on a first visit, but it adds an important detail. Catania is not only Baroque and visible lava. It has older layers, sometimes hidden inside the urban fabric. The same rule applies here. Don't add it just because it is something to see. Add it if you want a wider reading of the city. If your time is short, protect Piazza Duomo, the fish market, Via Etnea, and Via Crociferi. If you have more time, these places show you that Catania is never told on just one level. At this point, Mount Etna should not be treated as just a trip you add later. Etna is already inside Catania. It is in the lava stone, in the color contrasts, in the feeling of black under bright light, in the edges of the streets, in the paving, in the dark details of the facades. In Catania, nature does not stay in the background. It enters the streets. And the same logic applies to your pauses. In Catania, you don't need to chase everything. You need to choose what helps you feel the city better. Food should be approached with the same logic. Granita with brioche,
arancini, pasta alla norma, tavola calda, yes, they are experiences worth having. But don't turn them into a checklist. Choose a strong breakfast, a simple pause, and maybe dinner in the center. That is enough to let food become part of the journey, without turning it into a mission. If you're wondering what to see in Catania in one day, stay in the central core: Piazza Duomo, the fish market, Via Etnea, and Via Crociferi. With 2 days, add the monastery, Castello Ursino, and a slower version of Catania. With 3 days or a weekend, you can open the trip beyond the center. But that is where you need to choose. Catania is worth visiting precisely when you don't treat it only as a base for Mount Etna or the coast.
If you are looking for things to see near Catania, the 3 most natural choices are Mount Etna, the Cyclops Riviera, and the city beaches. But these are not 3 stops to squeeze into the same afternoon. They are 3 different trips. Choose Mount Etna if you want to understand the power of the landscape. It is the strongest choice, but also the one that needs the most planning. Do not treat it like a casual walk. Weather, access, clothing, and timing should be checked in advance. If you only have 1 day in Catania, I would not sacrifice the center just to add Etna in a rush. It's better as a second day, or as a dedicated experience. Choose the Cyclops Riviera, with Aci Castello and Aci Trezza, if you want to open the trip toward rocky sea stacks, lava coastline, and horizon. It's more visual, more coastal, and better if you want to end with a sense of space. The city beaches make sense if you want a simpler pause, especially in the right season. But Catania should not be confused with a pure beach destination. The sea here is a possibility, not the heart of the trip. The best choice depends on what you feel is missing after the center: landscape, coast, or pause. Don't try to take them all. Catania works better when you choose one direction and follow it well.
In the end, Catania is not understood by lining up as many stops as possible. It is understood by noticing what keeps returning. Lava inside the stone. Baroque architecture that never feels weightless. The voice of the fish market. The line of Via Etnea. The sudden quiet of Via Crociferi. The deep spaces of the monastery. And then, the final choice: Mount Etna, the coast, or the sea. If your time is short, do less, but do it better. I would start in Piazza Duomo, enter the fish market, walk up Via Etnea, protect Via Crociferi, and choose carefully what to add. Because Catania does not ask you to put it in order. It asks you to cross it while accepting its energy. Your turn. In Catania, would you choose Piazza Duomo, the fish market, Mount Etna, or the Cyclops Riviera first? Let me know in the comments. And if you like travel guides made for real planning, not just collecting places, you can subscribe to the channel.